Okay, welcome to the Mat 200 how to create a lightsaber battle tutorial. Okay, I'm going to go through this as quickly as I can. So let's just start rattling off the steps. If you were in class on Wednesday, you got introduction on how to use the masking tools in After Effects. And so this is sort of a little bit more advanced application of those tools. So let's go ahead and start by loading the clip. I'm going to right click in the project window here and choose import. Go to file, and there's my lightsabers clip. Okay, I'll go ahead and open that up. So I have the clip right now, but I don't have a comp yet, so I need to create a comp. I can either drag it down to this icon, or I can simply drag it out onto my canvas. You'll notice it's a little too big, so I'm going to hit Command minus to shrink it down. Next thing I want to do is trim down the clip. So there's a few different ways to do this, but I believe the easiest way to do it is to just define a work area and trim to that. So I know the lightsaber comes in at about 14 seconds and 20 frames. So I'm going to count 5 seconds forward from there, because that was the assignment, to do 5 seconds of lightsaber masking. And by lightsaber masking, I basically mean adding the glow to the lightsaber. So I'll start at 1420, I'll advance forward to 1920, and then I'm simply going to grab this little blue bar and drag it back, and that's defining my work area. I'll go ahead and come up to Composition, Trim to Work Area. And you notice the clip disappears, but I just need to go back a little bit, and there it is. Okay, so again, I don't see the sword until the 20th frame, 1420. So for that reason, I'm going to put the playhead right there, because I don't need to create any red glow prior to that frame. You'll notice there's the sword right there. If I hit page up and go back a frame, you notice it's not in the frame. And obviously we're only adding the glow to the, not to the handle, but to the sword itself. So I advance forward to the first frame where I can see the sword, and then we're going to go ahead and add the glow. And the way we do that is by selecting the rectangle tool. You can set your fill to red or whatever color you like. If for any reason your fill isn't set to solid color, you can click on the word fill and choose solid color. We don't want to use a gradient, radial, or linear, and we don't want to have no fill. And we also don't want to have a stroke. So if your stroke is set to solid, hit cancel, click on the word stroke, and you can set that to none. Okay, so now let's go ahead and create our rectangle. Now make sure that your lightsaber clip is not selected, or else the rectangle tool will become the mask tool, and it'll end up masking out your lightsaber. And also keep that in mind, because I'm going to tell you something different in just a second that's going to kind of go against what I'm saying right now. So just keep that in mind. Again, lightsaber clip not selected. I'm going to drag out a red rectangle. Okay, that's exactly what I wanted. Now the next step is to lower the opacity on the red rectangle. And to do that, I just make sure it's selected, hit the T button for opacity, and drop it down to about 20%. All that matters is that I can see through it well. Okay, so now I'm ready to start masking. And in order to do this, I'm going to be creating a mask on the shape layer. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep the red glow on the sword and remove it from the rest of the clip. So I need to use my mask pen tool to do that. But since we're working with a shape layer, there's one additional thing we have to do. If I start drawing a mask, you'll notice I don't get a mask. I actually got, did I close that? I actually got nothing. I got another shape layer, which you'll notice is not filled in right now. There's rectangle, and then there's shape 1. If I hit Command Z a few times, you'll notice we're back to just one rectangle. And the reason is because After Effects doesn't know whether I want to create a shape or a mask because I'm dealing with a shape layer. So I just have to do one thing to tell After Effects that I actually want to mask out this shape layer. And by mask out, I just simply mean hide the parts that I don't want. And to do that, I have to click this little white checkerboard square with a circle that says Tool Creates Mask. If you notice right now, if I go to the right, it says Tool Creates Shape, and that one is highlighted. So I have to change it to Tool Creates Mask. Okay, and with that, I am ready to mask. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Command plus and zoom in a little bit. Maybe slide my screen over. You only have to mask one of the lightsabers. If you want to do both, you're welcome to. But it's a little labor intensive, so I'm only requiring one. So we're going to make our first mask by clicking. Actually, I'm going to hit Command Z there. There we go. And selecting. I'm going to create. Now my mouse sometimes double clicks, and that's what happened right there. So I'm going to go back and click on my pen tool, click Create Mask, and hopefully finish this mask. There we go. Okay, so now I have masked off the part that I wanted. And before I mask another frame, I have to remember to go in and tell it that we're going to animate this mask. And in order to do that, I'm going to hit the M key for the shape layer, and that'll bring up the mask. And I'm going to come down here to Mask Path, because that essentially is what this is. This shape is the path of the mask. So I'm going to go ahead and add a stopwatch. Click the stopwatch, and that adds my first keyframe. And from here on out, I'm going to basically be doing the same thing for just about every frame. So from here on out, I'm going to go page down to advance forward one frame. I'm then going to grab my pen tool, and move my mask. But you'll notice that my mask has gotten solid. All of these little control points are now solid. I want them to be hollow so that I can adjust them individually. So if this happens, just simply hold down the Shift key and click on each one of them, and they will become editable. And again, my mouse just accidentally double-clicked there. Hit Shift again, and add that in there. So now I have them all empty. I can drag them and reposition them. And all I really need to do from here on out is go page down, reposition the mask, page down, reposition the mask, and keep going. Now the only time that this will change is when they begin to cross swords, because essentially the sword will be getting cut into two different pieces, and therefore I will need a second mask to mask the second half of the sword. Go ahead and bring this down, and when I move the screen, I'm just holding down the Shift key, or excuse me, the space bar, and notice that my tool turns into a hand, and I can move the screen around. It's really important that you zoom in when you are masking, or else you'll create a sloppy mask and it won't look good. Okay, so this is the point where you probably don't need to listen to me talk anymore, so I will try to forward through this in the edit. And essentially, at this point, I'm just going page down, repositioning the mask, page down, and again, page down advances me one frame forward. And if you look down at my timeline, you'll see that every time I move these keyframes, or I move these control points for the mask, it creates a new keyframe. So I'm essentially tracking by hand. Now, unfortunately, the tracker for the mask, while it can be really helpful, it's not going to be able to track this, because you can see, if you look right now, the motion blur on the sword has made it almost invisible. And that is why trying to track it automatically just isn't an option. And so I will stop talking and move forward with my mask. Okay, so right here you'll notice that the sword's almost hidden entirely. If you don't need the mask or you don't need to show any red, you can absolutely just minimize the mask, meaning just turn it into a very small little speck and you won't see it. And you can see right there, I kind of just dragged it out across his wrist and you can't really see the red. And then when it comes back, you just stretch it back out. Okay, now you'll notice right here the sword goes off the screen. So I simply just pulled the mask off the screen. And you'll also notice that for each frame, I just moved like one little part of the mask just to essentially create a keyframe. Every time you move or change the mask, regardless of whether you're doing it to be seen, it will create a keyframe. So I kind of went up and analyzed where I was going to be. The other thing you'll notice is that there's a couple spots where the sword gets chopped in half because his head is in front of it. We're not going to create two masks right now, so you'll see that I just kind of jump from the small side to the big side. And again, the idea is to get this concept down, and we'll do some fine-tuning in class next Wednesday. So make sure to bring the entire project with you. And when you're done masking, well, let's see, I'll jump to that point. Okay, at this point you'll see I'm pretty much done masking, so I went ahead and went up to Layer and used Layer Styles to add an outer glow. And I tried putting a little bevel on there too, just a soft bevel. We'll play with how we want to dial it in. You're definitely welcome to play around with some glows or some bevels, some things that might give it a little bit more of a round look. If you want to try what I did, just go to Layer Style and you can watch the tutorial and you'll see all the sliders. I didn't go in there with any specific numbers. I just sort of played around with a few until I was happy, and might still go back and modify it a bit, but I needed to get this finished up for you. So there is our lightsaber tutorial, and I will show you what this looks like when it's all completed.